Hey everyone, Chaps here. Have you ever heard of Mansions of Madness? It's a co-op board game that quickly grew to become a favorite of my friends and I. With this style of game, there can be a lot of tokens, cards, and just various pieces. Because of this, when I got my 3D printer a few years back, one of the first things I did was print some organizers. Robinson Crusoe and Mansions of Madness were right up there at the top of my list. I also tried designing an organizer from scratch for the Gears of War board game. Being Mansions is one of our all-time favorites, we've expanded our collection. We now have all of the main expansions. And with that comes new monsters, cards, tokens, players, and tiles. Because of this, the original holders that I printed no longer fit our needs. Sure, I could just print another copy of each and it should hold everything, but hey, I'm an engineer. You know I'll over-engineer something, so here we go. This is what I came up with. If you're interested in printing any of these, I've got links to the files on Thingiverse and Prusa prints listed down below. Originally, this video planned to walk through the design process, why these parts are made the way they are, and what issues I ran into along the way. I'm still down to do that if people are interested in that sort of stuff, but for now, let's just look at each of these organizers. We'll start with what is probably the most important box. This holds all of the clue tokens, and then we have the sanity and damage cards up here, and across the bottom we have the common items, unique items, the spells, and the conditions. I also have these two little dividers that I printed up, so they let me easily store the elixirs and the trader cards, or whatever they're called. The unique item stack is pretty small, so I just put these other ones here as well with those nice little dividers. Lastly, we obviously need a lid so that everything stays put when we're storing it and transporting it. Next, we'll take a look at what is arguably my favorite print from this series. This is where we store our primary tokens. The Investigate and Interact tokens, along with the Explore tokens, are first. Next to those, we have the Overgrowth and Rubble tokens. Opposite of those are the Restraint tokens, and next down the line are the Rift and Water tokens. There's just so many of these that I had to split them half and half and put them on either side. The same goes for Fire and Darkness. You just built up so many of these from all the expansions, they just had to be split here. I love how I have each section lifted up here and the top stay pretty even, and then this lid just slides right on. I love the lid design on this one. It just slides right on and holds everything together nicely. Just as with the card holder that I showed first, this door and debris holder is very similar to some of the existing models. Each space has been extruded up so that the pieces all fit nicely at the top for easy access, and just like that last holder, it's got a simple slide-on lid. You can really tell that I started liking this lid design, because we see it once again here for the improvement holder. This has 6 slots for the improvement tokens, a slot for the keys, and a slot for the color identifiers for the monsters. Last but not least is the one that took me the longest to get right. This is my new and improved NPC holder. It may look just like an extended version of the original one, and it mostly is, but with a few key improvements. Rather than just having all pieces fit in as small of a package as possible, I wanted to keep it as organized as possible. It may be hard to notice at first, but there's some extended gaps between the sections. These gaps differentiate the different expansions so that you can easily pull the right NPCs. Not only that, but the double-sided nameless NPCs have their own slots instead of being mixed in with the named ones. This took me a while to get right, but I've been loving the organization it brings. And speaking of organization, there's one last part that we should show off, and this isn't per se a holder, but it is a great organizer. Each expansion has a lot of tiles, and they really add up. Anyone who's played with the expansions knows that it can be a pain to search for the correct tiles. Luckily, the game tells you which expansion each tile is from, so if you keep them organized, it should be much faster. So with that in mind, I found what I consider to be the optimal layout for organizing the pieces. The long tile goes in first, then all the square tiles go on top of here. Then on this side, we can stack up Path of the Serpent, Sanctum of Twilight, and Horrific Journeys. Over here holds the base game tiles, plus Streets of Arkham, and all that's left is Beyond the Threshold. Unfortunately, we're out of room on the sides, but luckily there's just enough room over the square tiles to split these out. It's a tight fit, but all tiles are able to be fit in here nicely. This divider helps keep them separated and in position. I added a few notches so that you can more easily get the tiles out, or get the organizer out, and I even added this little guide down here to help you remember exactly how to properly store it. It's not necessary, but if you do want this to be more readable, just put in a color change right before the text layers. So yeah, that's all the parts, but let's look at it all together. I've got all the token and card holders in this Horrific Journeys box. Along with those, I have the first edition conversion kit, which sadly I don't have the first edition, so I can't really use this. But I also put the die, the character cards, and the character figures in here, so all of it goes together with room to spare. Next, you saw all of the tiles. I put those in my Path of the Serpent box. This leaves us with just 2 boxes left, the main game and Streets of Arkham. Well, I guess that's not counting Beyond the Threshold and Sanctum of Twilight, as those are just cheaper, smaller boxes that I just threw out once I got everything out of them. So I personally like having all of my enemy figures glued to their bases. It can be somewhat inconvenient at times, but most of the time I really like it this way. Unfortunately, they now take up a ton of space. Luckily, all of the small figures fit perfectly in an expansion box, namely I use Streets of Arkham. Then all of the medium and large figures fit in the main game box. So look at that, the base game plus all 5 expansions packed nicely into 4 boxes. Again, I'm happy to go into more details about how these were modeled in Fusion 360 and why I made them the way I did, and some of the challenges I ran into along the way. Just let me know if you'd be interested in seeing any of that. As I said before, the links to the files on Prusaprints and Thingiverse can be found down below, and I'll try to include the raw CAD files as well. Go ahead and drop this a like if you think we've earned it, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.